All right, peeps, on today's episode of the Kung Fu Genius, the Genius will be recapping day 2 of the Hong Kong trip. Lots of gems, lots of Arthur Tang's horse stance, and lots of, this isn't a normal Cheung Saam, this is a Manchu Cheung Saam. Let's get to it.
And every day, I practice martial arts.
Yo, Mikey, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Sigong. How are you?
Good. So here we are again for another Hong Kong recap because the first time we tried it, we thought we'd recap the whole trip in an episode, and we got through day 1.
Yes, we did. We were never going to get past day 1, really.
No, there was just too many stories.
Too many.
Yeah, and we were able to make that little clip out of that one about, finally, I had my clip about how I got the nickname Kung Fu Genius.
Yes.
So whenever some chucklehead comments, I can just post that link there. All right?
It's only taken you 2 years to get it, by the way.
Yes, and I keep asking for it. Like, can we take one of these times when I explain that I don't seriously call myself the Kung Fu Genius? Can we just turn that into a standalone clip?
Yeah, no, we always say, yes, we'll do it, and then we don't actually do it. So
Yes.
It took actually an episode to make that done. So there we go. We got it. So
Yes.
Cool.
So before we get started, the best way to support the Kung Fu Genius podcast is on Patreon. Patreon.com/the Kung Fu Genius. For as little as $5 a month, which is like less than a cup of coffee nowadays.
That's about the same price as a cup of coffee.
But
This
just
coffee.
one. Mm-hmm. And you get those like every day, but this is one a month. All right. You can get access to episodes early and a bunch of other goodies that I share on Patreon just with my Patreons. For higher levels of support, we have all sorts of different specials there, including like a private episode with the Kung Fu Genius.
Oh, yeah.
Also, Patreon is the easiest way to get in touch with me directly. And now we don't do Ask Me Anything episodes anymore from YouTube questions. We only do them from the Patreons. So if you want me to answer a direct question here as either a standalone topic or as part of an AMA, join us on Patreon. Mm-hmm. So let's get into it. So if I recall correctly, and I know you recently re-listened to that episode, I did not. But we basically went through day 1. We talked about how we got there. We talked about some of the cast of characters. Mm-hmm. Talked about my weird, awkward dinner with Sifu Leung Tang.
Yes, I can give you, what's it like, at the beginning of all those CW episodes, it's just like, recap,
That's right.
We just did...
Previously on The Kung Fu Genius.
Previously on The Kung Fu Genius.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, that was kind of... So basically, we obviously discussed that you had to disappear off and see Sifu Leung Tang.
Yeah, which was awful.
My personal first impressions of Hong Kong, because I'd never been, meeting everybody new, discussing all the great people that we'd had, just that's kind of like where we're at, and we got as far as day 1.
All right, well, day 2 was quite action-packed, and you'll probably help me fill in some of the gaps.
I will, actually. You know what? Before I actually get any further, it fell. I'm going to grab it. You see, per my therapist, I've been keeping a journal.
Oh, okay.
So just when I wasn't sure what day was what, I have it in my journal.
Oh, fantastic.
So I can get a very quick recap of whatever it was, right?
Good.
Let's welcome to, in England we called it Jackanory. Let's open the book. August 22nd, I believe, was the next one. I can tell you straight out, though, that we went to Yip Man's grave.
Yes, that I remember. That was an amazing day.
Yes.
And we had mentioned this on the first episode, but I realized at the time of the first episode coming out, Andrew, our editor, our occasionally embattled editor, released these awesome travel vlogs.
Yes.
Through his channel, Adventure Archives. But when the first episode came out, he still had not yet released any of them. He had sent the first 3 episodes to us, which was kind of like the first 3 days. And we had a chance to see it. And I was like, yeah, you'll have a chance to see it too. But by the time that episode, our first Hong Kong recap came out, he had not yet officially released them yet. But he has since officially released at least the first one, at least at the time of this recording.
Oh, only officially, because I feel like we've seen 3.
Yeah, he made 3, he's only officially released the first one.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll put links to that finally in this video, at least to whichever ones are out at the time of this recording. They're amazing. Did such a good job with that, and
absolutely.
which is just makes it all the more shocking what a piss poor job he does with this podcast when it comes to editing. When I see how well he shoots stuff and everything, I'm like, oh my god! And look at this podcast.
Well, you know what it is though. It's like that. Just like you can tell. you know, like I do a lot of corporate audio, right? So you can
Yeah.
tell the ones like when I'm doing things, you're like, man, that sounds amazing. And then the other one's like, yeah, you know, I can hear it. That's kind of like, it's like, so like,
It's all about the motivation.
It's all about the motivation. I get it. Like Adventure Archives, Andrew is definitely the focus. And
Yes.
with this one, he's like, oh yeah, I can, you know, bring, phone that one in, you know.
Yeah. We're not the focus, we're the focus at best.
There's a thing on, like, as anyone a little bit techie knows this thing called keyboard shortcuts. And when it comes to Andrew's editing, he is...
So I've heard, because I've never seen his editing bay, but I heard that basically him editing an episode of KFG is him like eating Doritos, looking away, and hitting a bunch of hotkeys.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
right?
pretty much,
Okay.
yeah.
That's why so many F-bombs get through. Because if he's crunching on those Doritos, it's possible he doesn't hear it, because, you know, you just hear the crunching in your own ear.
Well, also, if you skate through an episode at like 1.5 speed to get it done even quicker.
Oh, right.
You might not actually hear the F because you might hear, you know, because you realize it's actually
a really fast big.
Okay, thanks. Now you know that I'm editing all that stuff out. You're just going to be like,
you still missed one.
Hey, that's Dre's fault.
So anyway.
Hey everyone, just want to let you know Wing Chun Illustrated is now offering a paperback edition through Amazon, reaching a larger global market. And no, they're not ditching the glossy magazine edition through MagCloud. You can now simply choose the version of this magazine you prefer and the one with the cheapest shipping wherever you live. Order your copy of Wing Chun Illustrated today across 12 Amazon marketplaces with free shipping for Prime members. Go and check that out.
So here we are on the second day. The second day was very exciting because it was really the first day that my Sifu Kanspect was able to come with us.
Yeah.
Because the first day he had to stay back and perhaps prepare later in the evening for the trip for the meeting with the Sifu Leung Ting. But the second day we were able to bring him on, which was cool because that's when everyone met my Sifu, and it's like, hey, and a lot of people obviously knew who he was already, and we made the journey from the center of Kowloon all the way up to Fanlang. Fanlang being way up in the New Territories.
Yeah.
When you go all the way up there, you can see Shenzhen and mainland China from the train. So you can just look over the border and see mainland China. It was very cool to be there with him. And also, I think my Sihing, Giuseppe Schembri, although he had been to Hong Kong a number of times, he had not yet been to Yip Man's grave. So it was like taking him there for the first time.
Oh, wow,
yeah.
that's amazing.
And it was really, really great.
Yeah.
So we took that train ride up there, which was a lot of fun. This is also documented on the second of Andrew's vlogs. And second or the third, I don't remember. Because I think he did 3 of them, but it's only to day 2 because his day 1 was to be day 1 before the trip started.
Yes, that is correct. Like it was like he didn't actually get to day 1 of the tour until the second one.
Right.
Like I think day 1 of his vlogs ended with him going, everyone's trying to get me out to do some stuff.
Right.
And I'm going to go to sleep because I'm jet lagged.
And look sexy.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's just like, oh yeah, so this is my shower.
I love his gratuitous, like, check out the water pressure in my shower. Like him just being like the total thirst trap, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right, Andrew. We know what you're doing. Don't worry, we got you.
So we went up there. For people who have not been to Hong Kong or people who have not visited Yip Man's grave, so Yip Man is buried way in the New Territories, which is like, in America we would say way out in the sticks. So although he made his career mostly in Kowloon, down kind of in the heart and center of Hong Kong, he's buried, kind of further out. And he's behind a very big Taoist temple, which is the temple itself is worth the ride up there too. It's a very ornate temple called the Fengying Xingun Temple.
It's got where Alexander Fusheng
Yes,
is.
and Alexander Fusheng's ashes are there.
Right there.
So we went up there, and so some Kung Fu movie nerds were very excited to see that. Bruno, I had actually found it many, many years ago and then forgot where it was. And then when I brought them there, I'm like, yeah, it's up here somewhere. And we had I had to keep asking the ladies in Chinese where it was. And their directions were always very vague. They would always tell me, oh, he's by this other guy. And I'm like...
that guy I know.
Yeah,
very
exactly,
well.
exactly. All right. Need just general directions.
Yes.
Right, left, straight ahead, second building. I can understand all of that in Cantonese. But like make a left at like Mr. Leung, and then he's two down from Mrs. Wong. It's like no, there's too many Mr. Leungs at Mr. Wong's there, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, we go to the temple, and I remember that day was hot as balls.
Oh dear God!
Yes, I mean it's obviously we're in Hong Kong in August. Hong Kong is very hot and humid, but we're there like in the depths of August. Up there, you're. I mean, obviously you have air conditioning everywhere in Hong Kong, but we're outside. Yeah. And I remember I wore my Lei Kung Man shirt, and it was so sweat through, you could see my nipples.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, this was the worst choice for me to wear this day. Because all the photos of us, we took all these like nice photos of Grandmaster Yip Man's grave, and there I am with like my nipples sticking out.
Like I didn't want to be disrespectful to the Grandmaster, but I couldn't help thinking to myself and making the odd joke about how this was the most inappropriate place for the Kung Fu Genius to do thirst traps.
Yes.
Because that's
and
why.
Yip Man's unintentional thirst traps.
Like, oh yeah, Yip Man's grave. Like, look.
Yeah, and when I saw the photos, I was horrified. I'm like, someone's gonna have to Photoshop my nipples out of all these photos.
This is why I wear black all the time.
Yeah. I just didn't. I expected to sweat a little bit. We were drenched in sweat by the time we got up there, right?
Well, because you're also like fighting through the jungle of like actually like getting up there and the bugs because they haven't really.
Yeah, Yip Man's grave, because a few people asked me like, how come the graveyard itself seems to be in somewhat of a state of disrepair, considering it has a very famous tenant.
Yes.
And the reason why I think it's not really in good shape is because if you look at all the graves there, most of them, and I think the more recent ones, were buried around the time of Yip Man.
Right.
So I think there hasn't been a lot of, there's no one news, because all the graves there are old. No one's been buried there for 50 years.
Yeah.
So the problem is, as the tenants of that graveyard get older and older, so there are fewer and fewer people coming to see them.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
So I think that it's basically a cemetery that's already full. And I don't know how motivated any groundskeepers are to keep it clean. In past years, it's always been like you got to walk up this path. These very narrow stairs. There's always tons of mosquitoes, so you got to come with like, insect repellent. If you don't have that, you're going to get eaten alive. As a pro tip, if you ever go to Yip Man's grave, bring lots of mosquito repellent. Otherwise, you're going to be in big trouble.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember the last time I was in Hong Kong, which was before the virus of unknown origins, that was in 2019. I went up to Yip Man's grave, and the path was completely cluttered because they'd been there. They have lots of like typhoons, basically hurricanes, and I think they had a big storm and a bunch of trees got knocked down and they fell over the pathway. And I remember when I brought Mark Oberdorfer there, my friend who's a director who lives in Hong Kong. I brought him there to shoot some stuff for the Yip Man documentary. He had never been there before. And I was like, oh man, normally it's not like this. It's like the path is covered in tree brand. There must have been a storm. And I'm like, someone's going to come and clean it.
Yeah.
And then fast forward to 2023 when we go, and it looks like nothing has happened since I was there in 2019.
Right.
Because it was not like that before. The path was at least always clear. So it's a little unfortunate, but who's gonna go there and take care of it? Maybe in next year's trip.
But the thing about it is that like when I went there, like they actually have signs for the very famous tenant, right?
Yeah, and they misspelled grave, Gray of Grandmaster Yip Man.
and Wing Chun, not Wing Chun,
right?
And it's
the VT spelling was kind of the one he used,
right?
So,
okay, cool. Okay,
he was partially responsible for coining that slightly erroneous spelling. I mean, the TSUN's Chun. The TSUN makes sense. The V, there's no V consonant in Cantonese phonetics. It's
right.
Just, someone just thought a W. The W sound was from a V. All right, and there are people that like to say like, oh no, this is like because of the special tones of Cantonese or whatever, and they're just retrofitting some bullshit explanation for a misspelling. All right, and if people spell VT, it's totally fine, but V is not accurate in terms of the phonetics.
I'm blaming the Germans.
Always blame the Germans.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For me, I was like, okay, like that. Those signs seem like kind of in relatively good shape, but I guess.
But they've been there for a very long time.
Right.
Those signs have been there. That's not recent because of the fame of the Yip Man movie. I think those signs have been there probably since shortly after he was buried there.
Wow.
Yeah, they've been there for quite a while.
Oh, wow.
That's not a new thing at all. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then there you go. That was me told.
Yes. The one thing, and it was kind of cool when we went up there because there's usually a little broom up there, so even if it's not the Qingming festival where you're supposed to clean the graveyards of your ancestors, if you do go up to visit Grandmaster Yip Man's grave, there's usually like a little broom or like a little mini broom there, and it's a good idea to kind of sweep all the leaves and things like that and clean it a little bit. We went there. We all took photos. It was a huge group there. Yeah. And if you ever do visit Yip Man's grave, right next to it, if you're facing Yip Man's grave directly, it would be to your left side, is the grave of Li Man, who was Yip Man's friend, and basically he's the one really responsible for Yip Man teaching Wing Chun. So without him, there would be no Wing Chun and Bruce Lee and martial arts scene as we know it now. It was Li Man's suggestion to Yip Man to start teaching at the restaurant union. So, and he now has, they updated his grave a little bit. The Wing Chun Athletic Association gave him a nicer grave, because when I was there, maybe 6-7 years ago, his Li Man's grave was in a state of disrepair. But I'm glad that the Wing Chun Athletic Association decided to finally do something with all the membership fees that they take, because the Wing Chun Athletic Association is probably the most useless of all martial art associations in the world. It's like the fees are just to pay the water bill of that place or something like that. Like they don't actually do anything, and they don't have any teeth in terms of like as a governing body. Right. It's just kind of a place for descendants of Yip Man to sit and drink tea and talk shit about other descendants of Yip Man. Yeah, it's basically all it is. But it was nice that they took some of that money and did something with it. Right. Mm-hmm. So that was the grave, and it was cool to actually. That was obviously the first time I was there with my own sifu. Right. And have a photo of me with him there. Oh yeah.
We were losing our shit. It was great for me. It was like I didn't get to have. I don't think I got a photo with Sijo. It would have been nice, but I got to get a photo with you. Yeah. Which was a big deal for me. Right. Don't get a big head. All right.
My head's already way too large for my height.
Yes, that is true. Yes. With the thumb, but also got a picture with Jose, who I love very much. So that was super cool.
Thursday we called him.
Yeah, Thursday. Actually, I'm beginning to realize he's more Wednesday. But yeah, Thursday. I got a picture with Thursday. You know what I mean, and that was cool. So we all got to get our photos, and it was a. People don't understand how much of a big deal all of this is.
Yeah, going to the grave of your grandmaster and going there with like your Wing Chun lineage, basically, right? Mm-hmm. And your whole kung fu family. Yeah, that was really cool. And then after, so we did the temple, then we did the grave, and then we went and got some really kick-ass Chinese food.
Man, that dim sum was so beyond legit. But it was great because it's in the new territories. We all walked in, and like everyone in the restaurant was just like, woof.
Yes.
Who the?
That's the funny thing. Like if you are, if you're walking in Kowloon, even if you're in a more local part where there's not a lot of expats or tourists. Yeah. If you're walking around Jordan as like a white guy, and no one is like really looking twice at you, right? But when you're like in a restaurant in Funlang, even now, and you walk in, there's like 25 mostly non-Asians, and they walk in and everyone's head turns like, what's going on? It's just like that scene from every movie, right? Yeah.
If there could have been like a record scratch. Yeah, that's kind of as close as it got to. Yeah. There was a time when Vicky and I were like looking to go out and like find the restroom like separately. We talked about it, and like because I don't think there was there must have been one in the restaurant. We just didn't know where it was. And I remember just walking out, and just as soon as I walked out of that room, it's just like every table was just like.
Yeah, of course. Very skeptical. Like, what are you doing here, right?
And I was just like, yeah, I can wait.
Yeah, because it's not unheard of. I mean, obviously, lots of expats and Westerners in places like Central and Admiralty and like Hong Kong Island and stuff like that. But when you get into the new territories, it's like, what are you doing here?
You ain't from around here.
You get the Chinese equivalent of like, you ain't from around here, are you? Boy. Right? It's like a little dodgy, right? I remember like one time I was in an elevator. I think it was just in Samsoi Bo, but Samsoi Bo, although it's part of Kowloon, it's where the art gallery was, where I taught that Wing Chun class. Okay. But already there, it's not far from the rest of Kowloon, but it's already pretty local. Like you don't have a lot of Westerners kind of going to Samsoi Bo for whatever reason, right? And I remember being in an elevator there, and like there was like some Chinese person looked at me and then just kept looking at me and wondering like what was I doing in this building, because it's like a very old building, right? And then said something to her friend like in Chinese. I don't remember exactly what she said, but she said something like what is this guy doing here?
Did you get to have that moment that we all dream about,
Yes,
where you can speak the language? And,
Yes. So I didn't turn my head and look at them, and I said,
carry on.
is your video still running?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's still running.
All right.
Okay, that's good to know. For
Yeah.
some reason, the screensaver goes, but everything else should still run.
Good. So, I just go, without looking, I go, 小心啲，有啲鬼佬識聽廣東話. So I just go like, careful. There are some Westerners who can understand Cantonese. And that are like, or sometimes like if they're staring at me, they say, 望住鬼佬要俾錢啊. Which is like, if you want to stare at the whitey, you need to pay money.
That's amazing.
Yeah, which is
wow.
great. Those are always fun. So so that restaurant was great. That was organized by Bay Logan, because his wife knows the owner. It's the Fortuna restaurant. So if you're ever in Fanling, it's about 10-minute walk from where the grave is. And Fortuna restaurant's pretty awesome.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, it was really
they had those like kind of black sesame buns with the custard in them.
Did you say sesame bums?
No, I was thinking of that. As I said it, I was like, I didn't mean to say bums, but
everything sounds so weird when you say it.
Yeah, well, that's because I'm kind of weird.
Yes.
Sesame buns.
Yes.
Bums is the same thing, isn't it? If you think about it in the particular kind of perspective. But anyway, they had custard in them.
Yes, they did.
Yes,
it was very good. That was fantastic.
Yes,
so we ate this great dim sum. Sivo really liked it. He was like, "Oh, this is the best Chinese food I've ever had." And then we left, and like as if that wasn't awesome enough. So it's just kind of give people perspective on the Hong Kong tour. It's like we went basically to the countryside, and we saw this amazing Taoist temple. And we went to the grave of Grandmaster Yip Man and took photos, and then we had this amazing Chinese food, and that's just the first half of the day.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like that's just like what we do in the first part. Most of the days of the tour, I tried to kind of have like not a morning and evening session, but like kind of like the first thing we did, and then a short break, and then we meet and do something else. So that every day you had like a little break in the middle of the day, and we did like two very different things. If it was like a Wing Chun thing in the morning, it would be a touristy thing at night, or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
And so after that, we made our way to the Martial Club, which is the office of Bay Logan for Real East and all of his kung fu movie memorabilia. But also it is the martial arts school for Mak Sifu and a host of other Chinese martial arts styles and sifus that teach there as well. It's an amazing space. And I know we might have talked about it in the first Hong Kong recap episode, but if you guys are ever in Hong Kong and you have a chance to go to the, to the Kwai Fong office there of Bay Logan and see the martial arts school and the setup they have there for Mak Sifu, you can find some traditional Kung Fu schools in Hong Kong of all different styles, and they all have that cool aesthetic. And if that's something you like, it's always cool to like Sifu Lee's Wing Chun Gym. Like there's a very cool aesthetic, but the Martial Club is something a little different, even from like Wan Kam Leung's got a great school, but those are like very traditional Wing Chun schools, very cool. But like the Martial Club is really just that. It's like a confluence of all the things from my childhood in one place.
Okay.
It's obviously there's the Wing Chun stuff there because he has a Wing Chun Sifu who teaches there, Michael Chan.
Yep.
And it's like the general Kung Fu stuff because you have not just Mak Sifu but other styles that teach all the weapons. So you got the weapons rack and the spears and the swords and every different type of like cudgel and stuff and the flags and everything and and like different bits of training equipment, and their heavy bags and Muay Thai equipment, and you look around and you have all the traditional trappings of a Chinese martial arts school, the photos of the teachers and their certs and their lineages, and then you turn around and it's all Kung Fu movie posters.
Yep.
Right? And the mix and the vibe of that place, it's unfortunate because it's maybe a little out of the way for people who live in kind of like, like people who live in Hong Kong, people who would have the means to do those kind of martial arts probably live in Kowloon or on the Hong Kong Island side. And it could be a little bit of a trek, if you're not like the most motivated to make it there.
Yeah.
Because there's no other place in Hong Kong like it. It's just so cool. And, Bay always talks about when we come over there as a group, I bring a bunch of people. He's like always so happy because the place is full. But he's like, most of the time it's not like that when we're not there, right? And it's really a shame because... can you imagine if you could transport the martial club and you could put it like in Central or you could put it somewhere where people would have access to it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That place would be popping. Because everyone would just want to be there because even if you're not practicing Kung Fu, you want to be in the office listening to Bay, tell stories of Mars or whatever.
Where he has like 3 different sets of like collections of vinyl. He has tons of comics.
Yes.
So much, like, it's not just, I think it's not just martial arts based. They had all the Iron Man and X-Men comics and all that kind of stuff. And he had there was like a ton of like action figures he had in his office as well.
Yeah,
which,
it's amazing.
Yeah, and then just different sections. So then it was like all the books as well, like all these great biographies of like great actors.
Film,
just
everything.
Everything. Like it's just
Elvis, everything.
Yeah, everything. Like it was fantastic.
No, it's an amazing place. I just love being there. I can imagine just sitting there and if Bay wasn't there, you just have so much stuff to look at and read and watch. It's really, really incredible. I really, really love that place.
So just completely off topic, funny, interesting fact, Michael Chan's son went to the same performing arts school that I went to.
Really?
In London, yeah.
Which one?
It's called the Brit School of Performing Arts and Technology. And I was one of the second year that went in. When they first opened, there was a year above me, and I was the second year. So I was like one of the guinea pigs when they were trying to test the place out. Like
that explains a lot.
So his son went like, ha 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 ha. So like 20 years later, his son went to the same thing. So like him and I actually got on a kind of like South London level because he was like, it's like, oh, so Thornton Heath and Croydon. I was like, oh yeah, of course I do. That's where I have my old stomping ground. So so yeah, that was kind of interesting.
That is
to find
awesome.
out.
He's super super cool dude. So we went over to the martial club and Maxifu gave like a 1-hour class on Hong Kong and showed some basics. You guys had the chance to train with Sifu Arthur Tang afterwards, and he's a Silam Fatka guy, but also a Thai boxing like kind of badass. So we talk a little bit about that.
Well, we did Sulin Fatka, right? So like everyone else was like kind of like, we're going to go off and do your thing, and you.
I don't even remember. Well, that was the Tuesday, right? You guys stayed there.
We stayed.
I probably had to go back to the hotel with Sifu, but I'm kind of wondering, like, is that did I just peace out and go back with Sifu?
I think so, yeah, because the
you
thing
guys
was,
just stayed.
Yeah, no. So we were like, not everyone stayed. It ended up being myself, George, Victoria and Sven, unsurprisingly, Jose and Andrew.
Right.
So there wasn't that many of us. Oh, and Kara as well.
Right. So basically the City Wing Chun crew. Or everyone like all the Wing Chun people who are associated with this school.
Right. And it was I mean, Tang Sifu was great, right? It was just, I'm always interested in learning new styles, but also how they're taught. Yeah. And it was a really interesting experience for all of us because it's like he had his one student who came in and did the form, like, because he's like, he was a bit injured, so he couldn't do the whole thing himself. It's like, oh, it's my student, So the student does the whole thing and we're doing it. And it's like, he showed it to us and then I felt this vibe that he kind of half expected us to be like, yeah, you got that, right? Sure. So we would each do the form, and we probably were in there for like 2.5 hours in the class just doing the form.
Sure.
And if we got the form
with a little else, right?
Yes. Yeah. And if we got the form even slightly wrong, he would come and correct us, and then he'd show us what the application was, right? And so we would do it with him, and then he would have us do it on our own in a group, and then by the end of it, we all did it like on our own. Individually. So being the smart guy I am, I waited for everyone else to go first.
Of course.
So I could
let everyone else up first.
Yeah, so I could make sure that I made the least amount of mistakes in front of him, because why not?
Yeah.
But you got some good video of Andrew doing it and all this kind of stuff, but it was, the only time I've ever spent the only 2 times I've spent longer in a horse stance was when we were doing long pole with you.
Right, yes.
And when I first trained with Max Sifu here, 5 years ago.
Oh, for the 15th anniversary.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we were there and it's like, oh, we're doing this. And I'm just like,
Stay in that horse stance.
Just stay in that horse stance.
Find your happy place.
Yeah, it was not a happy place. But it was great to learn like a whole new thing and actually be taught in a kind of Hong Kong kind of way.
Right.
Like, which is completely polar opposite to how we do it here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But like, and Tang Sifu was great. He still texts us
He texts me every day, like, good morning, everything like that.
Totally, you know what I mean? So, and then once we were done, Bay was like, oh yeah, do you want to go and get some like, just like bullshit, like Chinese food at like a local place, right? So we all went and had dinner at one of the places. It's like there's two malls right by him. So there's the fancy mall, and I realized that right next to it, joined onto it through a set of double doors, is the locals mall, which is where it's like all the market stores and all this kind of stuff, which I actually found when I went back after I was in Japan, and I got a lot of the shopping I needed to get from there, like that. But like we were in some restaurant in there, we all had like kind of just, I don't know, whatever, and just chatted until you were like, come to Lan Kwai Fong. That's where we are.
So that was the famous Lan Kwai Fong night.
That ended up being the famous Lan Kwai Fong night. So after we trained with, because the guys were just like, oh yeah, you know, we've been here, like maybe we should just go home and sleep. Because
it was a pretty intensive day. I mean, like going up to Fan Lang, walking up to the grave, walking all the way to the restaurant, the training. So it was like a pretty physical second day.
I just also should point out as well, like that part of the day was that Bay had got out all of his old like Golden Harvest stuff that he'd saved.
Yes.
So we all got original posters for like Enter the Dragon, Fist of Fury,
the Jackie Chan movies,
all the Jackie Chan, all the like Warriors 2, obviously like Dragon Lord, all this kind of great stuff, and got beta, and also his books as well. So we all paid for him. So like we all came back, and also like what the really small the Shaw Brothers stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Like, what's it? Prodigal Son, all that kind of stuff. You know,
Prodigal Son is Golden Harvest.
Golden Harvest. But like,
you're talking about the lobby cards?
Yeah, the lobby cards.
The lobby cards.
Right. So we all got like copies of those and had to like transport them back from Hong Kong
all the cool shit
to here. But we got all the cool shit that day.
Awesome.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
And then we ended up in Lan Kwai Fong.
Of course. So Lan Kwai Fong, for people who don't know, Lan Kwai Fong is basically the bar district in Hong Kong, but it's really the bar district kind of for tourists, kind of for expats.
It's absolutely the tourist expat bar district.
It's not like where the cool locals go. Like there's a bunch of different places where locals would go either for bars or go clubbing or whatever like that. And then there's some seedier places where people might partake in that.
Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about.
And then, but Lan Kwai Fong is kind of like, well, also when I originally planned out the tour, I wanted to make sure that, because I knew that the lion's share of people who are coming on this tour had never been to Hong Kong before. Some people already, which was kind of cool to see that some people had already been to Hong Kong. Hell, some people had even already been to Hong Kong with me and then decided to come again, right?
Yes.
I was like, all right, that's kind of probably a good sign, right?
Just like, what's it? Antonio had already left by then, but what was this, his third or fourth time with you?
This was his third time with me in Hong Kong. Every time he finds out I'm at home, he's like, oh, see, I'm coming. Yeah. Like, he just knows.
Funny, he was like, oh, I'm busy, I have to work, so I can't come on the tour, but I can definitely come on the stuff before.
Exactly. He still managed to make it in there, yeah. Well, because he knows. I mean, look, it's not to toot my own horn, but like, if you're interested in Hong Kong and you like this stuff that we talk about and Bruce Lee and Wing Chun and all this stuff, and you've never been to Hong Kong before, so you don't know what to go, where to go, or what to do, or whatever, like, literally come on the tour.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because as you've done it, it's like, from morning to night, I got a full plan, and I made it in such a way that if it's the only time you ever go to Hong Kong, if you only come one time, you're going to see all the kung fu stuff you want to see, maybe Wing Chun or Bruce Lee or whatever. But you're also going to see the touristy stuff. I mean, you can't go to Hong Kong and just look at a bunch of like old Bruce Lee shit and not go to Lan Kwai Fong. You know what I mean? Or like look at a bunch of Bruce Lee stuff or kung fu nerdy stuff and not take the ferry across the harbor or not go to the Peak. Or not see Stanley on the south side of Hong Kong Island. So I made sure that the tour was a mix of like all the touristy things you would want to do in Hong Kong if it was the only time you went there. All the kung fu stuff, all the Wing Chun stuff, movie stuff, and also just nightlife and fun and just shopping and everything. Like, so you get like a little bit of everything.
I was going to say, before we get to Lan Kwai Fong, there's someone else that I actually want to shout out for that day.
Okay.
Right? I mean, obviously we shout out like Ryan Logan because he was right there with us the whole time.
That's right.
But Ibrahim.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
I
Ibrahim. We need to talk about Ibrahim.
I feel he needs an entire episode.
Oh my God, he needs more than one. He needs to be interviewed. That's
Yes.
what he really. I would love to have him on the podcast.
Let's finish Lan Kwai Fong, and
Okay.
then let's just talk about Ibrahim for hours.
Yes,
all right?
I'm down with that. I can talk about him for hours. He's so cool.
Yes.
He's amazing.
He's really
He's
cool.
amazing.
He's really cool. So let's get the seedy shit out of the way. Now it's like you just brought out the fine wine. I'm like, but we got to finish this Budweiser back here first before you bring that good stuff out.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So so on the second night, I said, hey, why don't we go to Lan Kwai Fong? All right, because kind of place you got to go to if you've been to Hong Kong, right?
Yeah.
And we found our own place,
Yes, Nuevo.
which is technically a tapas bar.
Technically.
Yeah, tapas, not topless, tapas. All right,
Yes, just to be clear.
all right. There's a lot of accents here.
It's Spanish.
Yes, and it's not on the main strip of Lan Kwai Fong. It's off that side road where
Yeah.
you kind of go. I forget the name of it. It's like get a little L shape over there. Mm-hmm. And also we met the owners later in the trip, not on that second night, but we met
Yeah.
the owner. And a cool dude from California who
Yes.
opened a bar there in Hong Kong. He's amazing.
Yeah.
He's a very, very cool guy. If you guys are in Hong Kong, you go to Lan Kwai Fong, go to Nuevo. Is it Nuevo or Nuevos?
I think it's Nueva.
Nueva.
Yeah, Nueva
Because
Tapas Bar.
not only can you get, I follow them on Instagram.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Not only can you get like awesome drinks there, or whatever. Like I'm not a big drinker. I barely get through one beer. We're there for 2 hours. I barely get through one beer.
Yeah, that's in America. In
Yeah.
Hong Kong, it's a different story.
But what's amazing about that place, and what me and the Portuguese dudes found out, is they have really good food.
Yes.
The beef and everything, like all this stuff, like they have a really, really good chef. Their wait staff is really cool. The people they hire
Yeah.
are really cool. So if you go to Lan Kwai Fong, you got to go to Nueva.
Nueva,
All right,
yes.
It is the place. It is
Yes.
so good.
It was super cool.
Atmosphere is cool. Mm-hmm. What's her name? Husky that
Whiskey
works there.
Husky.
Whiskey Husky that works there.
I mean,
The
that's
other
not
dude-
her actual
Yeah.
name, but that's what we called her.
So we went there the first night. We ate a little bit. We started drinking, and then they gave us like a little private room in the back. Mm-hmm. And somehow you convinced them, or someone convinced them for us to take over the music selection.
It was a stuntmen. So we'd all
was
been
the stunt-
discussing
it was
about
the
the fact that-
Portuguese.
yes, because they'd been just playing like kind of, normal, exactly what you would expect in Lan Kwai Fong, but like kind of like bullshit, kind of like reasonably contemporary pop and all this kind of stuff. And
yeah,
you know,
nothing rocking the boat too much.
Yeah, I mean, and let's be honest, like we are. Like there's a few people that are a bit younger than us, but we're definitely like men and women of a certain age.
Right,
You know what I mean?
Right.
So like
Plus, we tend to be a little sophisticated
Yes.
when it comes to music.
sophistication.
Yeah, that's
all
right. That's
yeah.
right, yeah.
So
Don't give me this mumble rap, sir. Give me Wu Tang.
yes, big time. So we got
Sir, don't give me this pop rock. Give me Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh,
Sir,
hey,
don't give me this
hey.
nonsense. Give me Phil Collins.
How dare you both times? How dare you? How dare you? I am
otherwise,
sat right here.
otherwise have a pretty good taste in music, with the exception of that you hate stuff that's good.
No, I hate stuff that's
like Phil Collins, you have like a weird antagonistic relationship,
mediocrity.
right? Yeah. Yet you listen to drum and bass.
Drum and bass is the best music
There
ever.
is no differentiation. I come here, you're playing that drum and bass trash on my stereo.
It's so funny. But
And,
yeah,
and 40 minutes later, I'm like,
burning
is
its
this
way
the
into your
same
brain.
song? You're like,
Isn't it?
no, that was like 10 songs ago.
So you go home
I'm
and
like,
you
it's the
start
same thing.
tapping your foot and you're just like, fucking hell, Mikey, I'm beginning to like it. That's how he gets you. I'm going to get him. Anyway, so he loves it. So, Paolo.
Drum and bass is the mumble rap of instrumentals.
How dare
Okay,
you?
I'm just putting that out there.
How dare you? How dare you?
All right.
I'm not having that.
Drum and bass is to instrumentals what mumble rap is to real hip hop. I'm just going to put it out there.
You
All right,
can-
go ahead. Tell us about Lan Kwai
Drum
Fong.
and bass is the greatest music ever. But anyway, past that, right? So anyway, Paolo was like, by which point everyone had had a couple of drinks. I mean, we got there a little later, but like everyone was like, yeah, Paolo's like, he just goes up to like the bar staff and it's like, can we play some more like kind of, we want some 80s,
Yeah.
or something like kind of 90s and all this kind of stuff. And we're like, oh man, there's other people
He wanted
in the
like
bar.
Chumbawamba.
I
get knocked down,
but I get up again.
That's right.
Yeah. The funny thing is everyone knows that song because that was their global hit.
Yes.
But they were really big in England way before that was a hit as like this kind
You
of.
know what I just realized? If
What?
you had right now told me that you were the lead singer for Chumbawamba, I would have no capacity to doubt that. Because I'd be like, yeah, and then after that one-hit wonder died out, yeah, I mean, then now you start learning Wing Chun and City Wing Chun. That just makes sense. But like, I kind of envision you singing that song.
I don't know what I've done to deserve this today. Maybe I
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so yes, I am. Anyway, I was until they
Are you
kicked
the
me
Chumba?
out. No, I'm the Wumba.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, yeah. So what was I talking about? Yeah, Paolo, who's like, oh, I'm going to do this. We're going to go. We're like, oh yeah, we don't know if they're going to actually hook us up because there's other people in the bar,
Right.
and all this kind of stuff. But then all of a sudden.
They gave him full reins.
They gave him full reign,
Yeah.
and I think the first track they came in was a nice bit. Was it Wu-Tang? Or was it
at some point Wu-Tang
De La
was
Soul? I think they came in with something. Man,
They came in with something good. And then we
Something
were all in the
good.
back there singing and doing our thing.
yeah, we were absolutely, doing our thing.
Yes,
and,
as old people.
yeah. So
Yes.
Thursday was like got good footage of him like rapping to. I don't know. I think he
Yeah.
was just doing Wu-Tang, and then
Yeah.
we came over to you, and you managed to rap the I guess for want of a better term the blackest line of the song. Bear in mind, you're the whitest
I
man.
got caught, right? Because you start rapping, and then halfway through you go, oh shit, that word is coming up. And then I'm like, I'm just gonna stop now.
Yeah, yeah. Did you get that on tape? Yes. But
I'm just gonna stop.
But yeah, we're all having a great time. The KFG did a shot.
Oh, I don't remember that. You guys forced me to do a shot, right?
Well, we did not force you to do anything. Like you bowed to peer pressure, obviously, but we didn't force you to do anything.
Right.
You're like, I'm not going to do this, and everyone's like, yeah, and you're like, so yeah, it's the only time. It's probably the only time I'll ever see him do it. To be fair,
Yeah.
but he did it.
Yeah,
and he
because
did it.
I'm almost like what do they call the people who don't drink alcohol?
Teetotal, yes.
Teetotaler, or whatever,
Yeah.
right? I'm basically one of those.
He's
Except
sober curious.
I'm sober curious. Yeah, that's it. They're very mildly sober curious. That's a great way to describe it. I'll have, when I'm here in the States, I'll have a beer once a month, maybe.
Yeah,
All
except
right?
for that one time that Bruce Willow came over and you had 5.
Oh, that's right.
So basically, here's the common denominator. Bruno comes.
a Portuguese
The
guy comes.
Portuguese guy comes, and you're just like, it's all over for you.
Yeah, he
you know
kept
what I
giving,
mean?
because I'm like, I don't really drink, and he bought me a beer, and then he's like, you got to buy another one. You gotta buy. It was with Vincent.
Yes,
and
that's
I've known Vincent Lin. He's the godfather to my youngest, kind of legendary Hong Kong actor. I've known him for so many years, and I've never been drunk in front of him. and then there's Bruno who keeps giving me beer, and I'm just like, Vincent, he was so great with Jackie Chan. Really, he's never looked better with anyone else. And it's like, I need to go now.
Fantastic. Yeah. So there's your common element. Basically, Bruno's the bad influence, right? So we did that, and then we carried on in that vein, and then the 80s came on.
That's right.
And Bruno and I did a classic duet
I think
of
we're alone
Gold.
now. Which one was it?
We did Gold by
Gold by
Spandau Ballet.
Spandau Ballet. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got to grab
My dad is from Spandau, by the way. The real Spandau.
the real Spandau.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just told you that.
Yeah,
All right.
it's good. I'm not going to go any further with that one.
I just let you know.
Yeah,
All right.
just the whole thing, There was a prison.
Yeah, that was
there.
amazing. You guys really I think that there's something there. First of all, we mentioned Paulo a couple times. Paulo is the other Portuguese stuntman next to Bruno, who goes by Bruce Willow. If you guys are on Instagram, it's Bruce Willow. These two guys, when they're together, they need to have their own reality show.
Yeah.
But when you guys were all lip syncing that the Spandau Ballet song or what it was, dude, you guys were so good. We need to do something with you guys, like going to different cities and lip syncing, right?
Oh man, I'd love that. It'd be great. Just like if we could just get a couple of if we could get them to come to Croatia next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, by the way, have you seen that meme of a Milli Vanilli with their faces like this?
Totally.
It's like after they see people are making millions on TikTok lip syncing.
It's so good. And
Yes.
just yeah.
I always thought there should be a game show where you have to lip sync.
There is.
but you don't know what song it is until it comes on.
That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, so it would be like within, like, so for example, for geezers like us, it would be like 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Right.
And you are judged based on like how accurately you can do the song, because they're going to be watching your mouth.
Yeah.
And your general performance. So for example, these are the ideas I have at 3 a.m, right? You're there, it's your time on, and then like you have, let's say 70s or 80s. Those are your 2 categories, right? And then the song kicks in. You have no prep time, and you have to perform a section of it as accurately as possible, but also perform it. So if you're doing a rock song, you got to go like all rock star. If you get Michael Jackson, you got to pull some kind of dance moves. And the show would be called "What Are You Thinking About?" And it would have a German host.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh my God! It's almost like you actually thought you'd already thought of the title, and then you spent retroactively thinking of the idea just so you could get to that punchline.
Mikey, that's exactly what happened.
That is
exactly what happened.
Oh my God!
Yes.
Yeah.
But I still think it's a good idea for a game show.
I'm not saying, yeah, it's a great idea.
Because you have to know the song, so there's knowledge involved, but you also have to be able to perform.
Right.
Right. And it wouldn't be the whole song. That would just be too. It would just be like a section of it, and then in the final, let's say you have some kind of like you're going through the rounds and people are getting weeded out, and then it's just you and one other geezer at the end, right?
Yep.
And then at the end, it's a medley. The final is a medley where there's only like 15 seconds of a song. And it's like 2 minutes. So it's like 8 songs. And you got to be able to change midway into the next one. And you are judged by your overall performance at the end. Wow. By a German host.
By a German host. Are you that German host?
I could be.
I think you could. You could definitely.
Although the weird thing is, look, my father's German. I lived in Germany for 3 years. I can't do a German accent to save my life. I can only do an Austrian accent. Somewhat, influenced by Arnold and also by Bruno. But I can't do like the German accent is a little too flat for me. I like the Austrian accent; it's a little more interesting. Yeah. So I would always come off as an Austrian. So we would have to get a proper German to do it. But that's my idea right there.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. So Ibrahim,
yes. Let's bring it back to some class.
Yes.
Before we
Let's
go.
class up the joint here, right?
So if you're not local to NYC, one of the easiest ways for you to improve your Wing Chun training is to train online with me. Online private training is tailored toward the individual and geared towards serious practitioners who want to improve their skills or knowledge base. I offer 2 private lesson subscriptions, twice a month and 4 times a month. Kung Fu Genius listeners use the code KFG Online to get 1 online consultation lesson free with the purchase of any subscription. That code and the links are in the description below. Online private training is a convenient way for you to ask any of the questions you've had about application, form, theory, or even how to teach. Bring a partner to train with you online at absolutely no extra cost. I'll show you how to train with your partner online. Again, use the code KFG Online to get a free consultation lesson with the purchase of any online subscription. Links are in the description below, and I'll see you online.
Ibrahim, I believe his surname is Jie. I think it's Jie. He is a practitioner or an instructor of a very rare style of Kung Fu, Mi Zhong Lo Hon. The pronunciation is not correct there.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try.
Also because I don't know the Chinese characters well enough off the top of my head to say it in Cantonese nor in Mandarin.
Yeah.
So I kind of butchered it, a little half Mandarin, half Cantonese there. It's a very rare style, a very traditional style. And he, let me just put this out. He's one of the coolest dudes I think I've ever met.
Oh, absolutely.
And I
also
live in
one
New
of
York
the
City.
nicest guys I've ever met.
Absolutely. He's an absolute sweetheart. I'd been following him on Instagram for a little bit because I know, first I saw that he posted some videos with Maxifu. I'm like, oh, he knows Maxifu, and Maxifu seems to like this guy, must be a good guy. And then I started following his posts and reading it, and he posts very serious things on Instagram, like he'll talk about ethics and integrity and martial virtue and history and the usefulness of certain traditions, and so really, really fascinating stuff. And I just thought, wow, this is like someone who takes this very seriously, because nowadays Chinese martial arts is getting harder and harder to find, and the number of people who represent it authentically or fully with their heart, they're not just doing it solely for the sake of earning money, or they're also doing it really for a love of the art. These people are fewer, they're far and few between. And what's remarkable about Ibrahim is that he's a young guy.
Yeah.
And he's one of these guys that, although, and you found out this, he had never actually been to England, but he speaks with what kind of accent? Surrey?
A Surrey accent.
But perfect. He speaks pitch perfect, accent free, well, with the exception of a Surrey accent.
Yes.
But I mean, he doesn't sound like he's a Hong Kong Chinese speaking English.
Speaks. I mean, let's be honest. It's not that difficult. I'm not actually English. I just play an Englishman on TV. But but my point is that his English is flawless.
Yes.
It's incredible, and I say this in the nicest possible way. When I first met him, it was quite jarring because I'm just kind of like, you meet someone, you hear someone speak in a certain kind of way, and you get like an immediate an image of this kind of. I'm like, I get it. Like you probably, you're obviously from, Hong Kong was under the.
You're from the UK
British.
And you came here is the vibe you get from him.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, he's like, I've never been. I'm just like, what?
You've never been. Yes.
He's like, yeah. And then I found out the person that taught him was like this kind of like Surrey Baron, is also, he was the person that taught him etiquette and all the other kind of crazy stuff that he's like kind of learned.
Super into, yeah.
And it's like, but it's like, which is also transversely made him one of the most polite people I have ever met.
Yes.
Unbelievably polite.
Yes. So he's not only a scholar, he's also a gentleman, ladies and gentlemen.
Very much so. Very much so.
It was an interesting experience for me because as a Yank, knowing that I don't speak anything remotely resembling proper English, I felt really self-conscious speaking with him because I was like, oh my God, my English is inadequate to have a conversation with you. You're way better at this than I am. And I grew up in a country where English is the language.
The thing is, having conversations with him, I found that it actually brought out the best in me in terms of how...
Stepping it up, right?
Yeah, stepping it up. Because it's I'm a bit lazy and I have friends who are like kind of relatively street over here and in England and everything,
right.
But...
Dre.
Well, he's suburb, but I studied a lot of stuff. I studied theatre for a long time and studied English when I was in England, right? So to be with someone that I could suddenly I could feel all of my old vocabulary coming back just by being with him. You feel that a little bit more intelligent,
right?
Or you feel a bit self-conscious,
right? Yes, exactly. And I'm trying to step it up, but I'm failing, and I'm like, nah.
But it was, it was wonderful meeting him, and then I was very fortunate enough to get to spend some time with him when I got back from Japan.
Right, that's awesome.
And we had this really long conversation, like a solid hour and a half conversation about just everything. Actually, we had some of it was about martial arts, but also about how, the perception of people have of of other people, especially when you so again we're going back to his Surrey accent and the difference in colonialism and all this kind of stuff with certain people. He was telling me this story, and I hope I'm not overstepping my bounds by saying this on the podcast. Sorry, Ibrahim, if I am, but he was explaining about how he'd met an Indian family in Hong Kong who were even more products of colonialism as he had considered himself be. They kind of dressed in really, really nice suits, and I think the father and the son had bow ties and everything.
Or an ascot.
Yes, an ascot, right? and he said that their accents were even more kind of British English than his was.
I find that hard to believe.
I know, right? And he was just oh, okay. Just so it's not just me kind of thing. And it was just because obviously I'm never going to have that experience because of A, my generation, and B, because I fucking hate colonialism.
Right,
you know what I mean? Right. So I don't really understand, I know that it exists, but I don't understand it. So to kind of hear it and have this really, really wonderful, in-depth conversation with someone that actually is part of it and has known it and seen it was just... And also he's just so freaking nice.
He is.
And so smart, just fascinating.
So from what I understand, he comes from a well-to-do family. He was educated not just, I suppose, in English, but also in like Western etiquette. Like, so
Yes.
he's like the guy to go to know like all the little questions you have about this. But he's also an expert in a lot of aspects of Chinese etiquette, especially in regards to funeral rites and ceremonies and graveyards and all this kind of. He's a very fascinating person in terms of his depth of knowledge and the types of interests he has at his age.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you would associate those interests with like a very waspy older guy.
Yes, absolutely.
And he's like this young, good-looking Chinese man with like a tremendous amount of charisma. He wears a Cheung Saam. Cheung Saam is the long style clothing similar to what you see Donnie Yen wears, Grandmaster Yip Man, except that his is so stylish. First of all, he wears these like amazing shoes underneath.
The shoes are so cool.
Yes.
Oh my god.
But the style of Cheung Saam he wears is a Manchu Cheung Saam.
Oh really?
Yes.
Okay.
And he mentioned that to me because I was curious. One, it doesn't have the cuffs the same way that the regular or the traditional Chinese style Cheung Saam has. It has these kind of long, almost like gauntlet splits at the end, right?
Yeah.
It has it has no collar.
Right.
That's another thing that's different too. And because he is also of part Manchu heritage. So I didn't even know there was a Manchu style of Cheung Saam,
That's incredible.
And just in the brief amount of time I had to talk to him, I was like, wow, I could see myself going to Hong Kong for a couple of weeks, or let's say as I'm already planning next year's Hong Kong trip, hint, hint. If you did not go to the 2024, it'll again be in August, like last time. But I think I'm going to stay an extra week this time.
Right.
I may also teach a Wing Chun seminar while I'm in Hong Kong to kick it off for people who just maybe want to come to the Wing Chun seminar. And then after that, I'll have the tour. And then I want to like have a week and a half after where I do nothing but maybe hang out with Ibrahim and pick his brain, hang out with Maxifu, because that was the one thing I was a little robbed of in this last Hong Kong trip. One of the reasons why I love traveling there, it should be pretty apparent to anyone who's listened to this podcast for any time, is that it's obviously a place that's near and dear to my heart. And if you've been to Hong Kong with me, you know how much what a love I have for the place there. But my usually yearly trips to Hong Kong are not just me hanging out with my boys and showing my boys around, but it's also a chance for me to be a student and learn some stuff. Because when I was one of the things that one of my teachers, Sifu Heinrich Pfaff, he's a Siheng of mine who used to be a member of the EWTO. He was one of my main instructors in Germany when I was at the castle. He told me something very interesting before I left Germany to embark on my teaching career in the States. And he said, the most important thing for an instructor is inspiration. And I didn't quite understand that at that time, partially because I was always inspired, because I was spending my time hanging out with all these dudes. But then once I started teaching, you realize once your school is established and you have people coming, they're all looking at you. So you're the person who is kind of motivating them and getting them excited. And you're the one that has to kind of show them. Sometimes you have to demonstrate things in a more dynamic way to show them how cool it could look. You can't just do everything in a dry way. You have to kind of be a showman every now and again. You make people feel good about themselves. You have to be enthusiastic, and you have to give people that feeling like, wow, this is so cool. The problem is if you always have to be the person to give that inspiration, you need to fill that gas tank up so that you have something to give to other people.
Yes.
And it wasn't until I had started teaching for a few years that I realized, if the instructor is not still learning somehow themselves, or still trying to expand what they know and what they understand, it's very easy for that inspiration well to run dry. Not just for your own inspiration, for the ability to inspire other people. So I always I make sure that in addition to continually training my own martial arts and going back and seeing my C-box or people from my own Kung Fu family to, you know, like I saw Sifu Lau this past summer, like, hey, look at my knife technique. How bad does it suck? You know what I mean? I'm there, like, still improving my Wing Chun skill.
Yeah.
But I always make it a point every year to learn something new, even something unrelated to martial arts, because I think anytime you learn something, it just opens your mind to a whole new world of possibilities, a new way of thinking. I always like to learn new things in martial arts, whether I'm training with Magno or doing whatever. And on this trip, because I was so busy with you guys, I didn't really have a chance to like spend some time with Maxifu and maybe learn something about sword, or maybe learn something about spear, or hang out with Ibrahim, maybe learn something about his style or something like that. So I didn't get, besides the inspiration of you guys loving, like living Hong Kong through you guys, seeing it for the first time, which is great. I didn't really have a chance to go and learn anything new this time, except a couple of cool killer stories Bae told me. Well, so I think next year I need to rectify that by coming a little bit longer.
That sounds like a great plan to me. You know what I mean? And honestly, like, I'd happily spend a week hanging out with Ibrahim myself.
Yes.
You know, like you know he's half Japanese as well, so he actually speaks Japanese too.
Of course, well, that doesn't surprise me.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Although he was telling me that he's not really fluent anymore, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever, son. I'm sure, like,
he's got a Kyoto accent instead of a Tokyo accent.
just like,
It's a little rusty, yeah.
There's a little rusty. Like, I bet if I went to Japan with him, he'd just like, and I'd just be like,
of course.
You know what I mean? Yeah, of course, yeah. You know, because he's such a sweet. I'm just like,
he's
anyway,
really great.
You know.
He's really great.
But I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like this was just a bit of an outlier, because it's like, you know, at the beginning when we were planning it all, if you would have looked at the schedule, I'm sure there would have been plenty of places that you could have done this. But then every time that you thought you could have done something,
time fills up in Hong Kong.
So
someone's like, "Hey, you're gonna meet me here. Or you're gonna go over here," and then
we're gonna dim sum with this. We're gonna lunch with this. You're gonna have to suddenly have dinner with this. We're gonna film this, you know. And it's just the whole time, which was super fucking cool. Excuse my language, but you know.
I'm way more popular in Hong Kong than I am here. Like, I can get away, like, if I'm not teaching, recording a podcast, or at my house, like, training or studying, I have almost nothing to do. I mean, mind you, all those things occupy most of my time. But if it's like I'm not taking care of my girls, or playing with them, or doing something, or teaching, or studying, or whatever, like, my phone's not ringing off the hook. I have a very quiet life in New York, of all places. Yeah. The moment I arrive in Hong Kong, there's no free time. It's just like, hey, you got to come here. What about that? Oh, you got to meet with this guy. Or, you know, like on the last night, I haven't seen Tommy yet. Got to give Tommy a call. We go have we go have dessert with him, and then he's like, oh, there's this Ninja Turtle thing here in Hong Kong. We go break into his old office to see some Ninja Turtles, right? Like, it was like, it's kind of a typical night in Hong Kong, right? Kind of wild.
Absolutely, yeah. So, like, you know, like underground bands, it's like, you know, you're not big anywhere else, but you're big in Japan. It's like you're big in Hong Kong.
That's right. Which is kind of nice. It's nice. You know, like say when I go to like Hungary, like people know me as a Wing Chun over there, and it's kind of nice to go over there and like, you know, people like, you know, they won't come to my seminar and they make kind of a bigger deal about seeing me than it is. But it's also nice to kind of leave that and come to New York and just be chill and not have to, like, you know, deal with any of that stuff, because I don't know if I could keep up that pace. No. The Hong Kong pace is a pretty fast one to keep up the way we keep it up. Oh, yeah. And that's all I got to say about that. All right, everyone. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of The Kung Fu Genius. As always, don't forget to subscribe to The Kung Fu Genius. Hit that bell for notifications. And if you have any ideas for future topics, go ahead and put those in the comments below. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.
Word is I'm a kung fu genius. Technique speaks for me, not lineage. Forget Jet Li, cause I'm the one. Many call me seafood, but to you I'm sea kung. And I produce masters. You surpassed us. Your kung fu stiffer than corpse and caskets. City Wing Chun is the house I built. Violate the gate and your blood gets spilt. Alex Richter, always the victor.
Hong Kong recap part 2, right?
Yes, it is. Hong Kong recap part 2. Apparently I can't say C's or P's.
There's a lot of letters you can't say as a Brit. And you also randomly add R's to things like Lammer Island.
I do not do that.
Yes, you totally do that.
No, I don't. That is a fucking lie.
Yeah, I don't know. You got that? You got that? Got your energy?
I need you to press the button.
Oh, that was loud.
Dear God, I was just like, wait.
Holy shit. Oh,
better.
man. I think I forgot math. Sorry.
You're not sorry. Here we go. Child's got hold of the buttons again.
Okay. We're ready.
All right, Pete.
Sorry. Okay, I'm done. Good work, man.
This fucking guy.